Rishi Sunak is imposing a further delay to the cap on care costs. I've got to be honest, we go around the circles on this one, don't we? But the current plan, of course, was to put a cap on that was £86,000. That would be a lifetime cap on care costs. Paul, social care and who should fund it seems to be an issue that nobody has an accurate answer to or a strategy. They have lots of words, lots of visions, lots of white papers, but we don't get sorted out. Why not?
That's a million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, I think we need a national care service, frankly, in the same way that we have a national health service. I think the idea that people who have paid into the system all of their lives and are elderly or at some point in their lives they need social care and run the risk of losing their home and run the risk of having to forfeit thousands of pounds that they've earned throughout their lives. I don't think any civilised society should find itself in a place where it does that to people. I don't think we're particularly good in this country at funding for home and residential care. Much worse than Europe, in fact. I mean, I think recent figures suggest that we spend about 0.7% of our GDP, whereas other countries, Japan, the Netherlands, Sweden, etc., are more around 2%. And I just think, look, it needs proper funding, and I think the easiest and most straightforward way to do it is through a wealth tax. I think if you were to tax the super rich in this country, I can see Ben bristling at this, as I would expect him to. But I think the truth is we are not a poor country. The problem is that too much wealth is concentrated in too few hands. And if you had a wealth tax where you tax the super rich, we could fund it and we could achieve billions of pounds worth of income as a result of that tax, which we could then spend on social care.
I've got to be honest before I bring you in as well, Ben. You see, I just find this whole notion, so many people on the left, their answer to all the ills in society seems to be tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. And I just think it's a little bit ludicrous because the rich, I'll bring you in, Ben, the rich, the wealthy, they already are taxed.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a very, very dangerous thing to target the wealthy. And it's dangerous ideologically, philosophically. I think it's not sound because people who've done well in life shouldn't be penalised for the fact that they've done well. They're already paying much higher tax rates.
That's an argument against paying any tax. That's an argument to look upon tax as a penalty.
Paul,
then you would say, well, we shouldn't have any tax.
If you're a Democrat,
complete free-for-all.
If you're a Democrat, you should be anti-taxation, because why should a government make a decision on how to spend your pound over you?
Well,
you should have the right. So, for example, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that. Can I just make a very economic point?
How would we fund the armed forces? How would we fund?
Well, we need taxes. We need taxes. I'm not saying we get rid of taxes, but we are now at a 70-year high in taxes. We're about to go much higher because GDP is shrinking, and Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, his Igor to Frankenstein, is utterly committed to taking down our economy. And they're going to do it. They're going to do it by taxing us to the hilt. But on the wealthy, you have to... Just this one point to go away with. When the 45% tax rate was introduced, the higher rate of tax, there were about 330,000 people who fell into that bracket. Now there are about 700,000 who've been dragged into it through wealth inflation and without the thresholds being increased. Those people contribute 36% of the income tax take in this country. There's 1.7% of the working population contribute 36% of the income tax. If you kill that goose, there will be no golden egg. And people are mobile, much more mobile, Paul, than they used to be. People will up sticks and leave the country.
What they would do, Ben, what they would do, and it's exactly the point that you've just made, they would hold the country to ransom.
They're paying more than their fair share.
Explain this to me, if you would, then. When a rich person or a corporation says
they're not rich.
To a government...
I want to press pause, because you keep saying rich people...
This is such a key point, though, Michelle.
I know, and I'm going to let you get to it.
It's such a good one.
You're saying rich people, wealthy people, so before you put your analogy to him, what do you mean, a rich person? Because you just used that sentence into your question you were about to pose. What do you mean? What's a rich person?
I don't know if there's an arbitrary figure which says, if you earn £200,000 a year, for example, that makes you...
But you must have a vision.
A rich person. I don't think it's that scientific.
Do you know you're in the top 5% of earners once you get above 80,000 a year? That's how low.
I'm genuinely not arguing for punitive levels of ridiculously punitive levels of taxation. And in fact, traditionally in this country, we've had lower levels of taxation than many countries on the continent, for example. And if you look at a country like Sweden, where taxation is generally more progressive,
but they have social services that work.
They have social services that work because they fund them properly.
No. We've got a much higher tax rate as a percentage of GDP than Sweden does, but we have public services that are fundamentally broken. And I'm afraid...
Traditionally, that hasn't been the case, though.
Yeah, but under 12 years, this is where you and I are going to be in violent agreement, under 12 years of Conservative Party governance, we have become a high-tax, low-growth, high inflation... Everything's gone wrong with the economy. I'm searching for all the metrics, but the metrics are appalling right now. Just coming back to the workforce, 5.7 million people now claiming universal credit. Before lockdowns, it was 3 million people.
Why do we kowtow to the rich?
And but what is the rich?
Well, I'm just going to make the point. And
emotive language.
And to the big corporations, when they say to elected governments, at the point that you just made, Ben, look, unless you give us low tax, unless you give us low regulation, unless you give us everything we want, then we're going to up sticks and go somewhere else where it will be lower tax and we can make bigger profits. Why is that not holding the country to ransom when a worker like a rail worker who's going on strike for something like 7% is...
No one is going to the government. No one is going to the government.
Why do we treat those two scenarios?
No one is going to the government and saying, unless you give me this, that and the other, I'm leaving.
That's exactly what
they will just automatically leave. And let me just give you another example.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not, because no one's holding them to ransom. They need to do...
If the government knows they're going to go, then...
So let me just give you another very tangible example. I'm going to bring it back to Northern Ireland, which is a subject very close to my heart. Northern Ireland competes with the Republic of Ireland on an open economy basis. The Republic of Ireland has a 12.5% corporation tax rate. Northern Ireland, up until now, has had a 19% tax rate. That's sucked the lifeblood out of Northern Ireland because people have gone to the Republic. And we're about to increase the tax rate in this country to 25%. That's twice the corporation tax rate of the Republic. You will see Northern Ireland's economy do even worse. It's the biggest deficit economy in the UK. It's going to get worse. And that is right at Rishi Sunak's door. That is a complete fundamental misunderstanding of what high taxation does. You do not get more money by raising taxes when taxes are already at a 70-year high.
The argument is that every time a particular government, whether it's a government close to your own, a country close to your own, or wherever else it may be, these days of globalisation, it needn't even be a country that's close to your own. You know, they say, right, we're going to reduce corporation tax and therefore we're going to attract capital, we're going to pull in businesses from other countries. Then you would always constantly just be cutting corporation tax in a race to the bottom, wouldn't you? And what you would find as a result of that is you wouldn't get the tax revenues to be able to fund your public services. You would see an even greater gap in wealth and income between rich and poor in
I'm afraid
society.
That's a very bean-counter approach to it.
Because effectively businesses are having a race to the bottom
Paul.
and governments are playing along with it in order to attract the capital.
Look, if tax is zero, governments go bust. If tax is 100% of everything you earn, governments make no money. There's an optimum in the middle. What I'm saying is we are way over where the optimum should be right now. We are at a 70-year high on taxes. We need to cut tax. Liz Truss was absolutely right when she said the only way out of this problem is to grow the economy. And it's not about a cake which we need to, a wealth distribution of a cake that's a defined size. We need to grow the size of that cake. And yes, we've got to cut taxes to attract people to work in the United Kingdom. We've got to get rid of bonuses, caps on bankers' bonuses, as offensive as that might be to anyone who isn't a banker. Well, that's how you get the brightest and the best coming to the UK.
Why is it acceptable then to say we need to lift the cap on bankers' bonuses, some of the richest people in our society, at the same time as saying, as government has done in recent years, we need a public sector pay freeze? Why is it OK for public sector workers to have a cap on what
It's not OK.
But
it's not OK.
But
if rich bankers came to this country,
they would as much as possible.
No, because they're not here, you see, because they can make the big bonuses in New York and Tokyo. If they came here, they'd pay more tax, and the public sector workers would be able to get higher wages. That's the point about growing the cake.
That argument isn't ever used for public services and public sector workers when they say, look, actually, I'm not happy with what you're offering me. We've just been given a 2% pay rise when inflation is running at...
Paul, I'm completely with you.
Why do governments not say, particularly conservative Conservative governments, oh, look, we're in danger here of losing some of these public sector workers.
That's
we're
because, people like Rishi Sunak...
They're not happy with their, pay rise. But as soon as it comes to businesses demanding lower taxes...
No one's demanding lower taxes.
Governments are quick
No business is demanding lower taxes.
The country to ransom as
no, it's not. OK, let me give you my tangible example. I have businesses in this country and in Poland. Corporation tax in Poland is 19%. Corporation tax in the UK is 19%. Up until now, I've been entirely fluid about where bringing money back to the UK. If I make money in Poland, I'll bring it back to the UK. Now I'm thinking, actually, why would I bring money from Poland back to the UK and pay a 6% surcharge? I might as well leave the profit in Poland and invest that surplus profit in the Polish economy.
Okay, so what if Poland, for example, says, OK, tomorrow corporation tax is going to be 10%, or Ireland says corporation tax is going to be 5%?
Well,
your argument would be we should drop it.
Why do you think Amazon...
to the same level?
Absolutely. Why do you think Amazon, Google, Apple are all in Dublin? It's not because of a love of the Irish. It's because taxes are low.
So in other words, effectively a race to the bottom.
It's not a race to the bottom.
Where countries and corporations...
it's a race to an optimum level of tax.
Try to outcompete each other when it comes to who will pay the lowest tax. Bearing in mind, some of these companies that you've mentioned, the Googles, the Apples, are some of the richest companies on our planet.
Let me just...
make enormous £1 billion worth of profits, but actually want to pay less tax, and governments are hand in glove with helping them to do that. At the same time as we're about to hit a recession, people are struggling to make
But the Republic's economy has done incredibly well.
Pay increases. Private sector workers can't get decent pay increases, but hey, as long as Google and Apple don't have to pay any more tax.
I'm completely
your very last points. I've sat quietly and let you all go. I've been told off about 10 times. Your very, very last thoughts. Go.
It's not about... it's not about enriching the rich and sitting on the heads of the poor. It's about everyone being more proactive. Deregulation we haven't talked about. That's something else we need to. We've got to deregulate. We've got to cut taxes, and we've got to bazooka blast our economy forward. Because right now we are going down a sinkhole. That's what Sunak and Hunt's bean counting approach.
But we are going to a break.